the synthesis of science and communicates the results to help society respond to a very rapidly changing Arctic. So the structure and the history and all those kind of details about search are available at our website. There's our URL. So I'm not going to delve into all those details now, but what I am going to do is just succinctly tell you that at the core of search is an iterative process in which our sea ice, land ice, and permafrost action teams engage by listening to stakeholders and native communities and synthesize the science and traditional knowledge to answer societally important questions. So again, all the details are at our website, and we're happy to answer questions today. But today's town hall is really kind of a hybrid. It's actually designed to extend a meeting this morning of our scientific steering committee and the leads of our action teams and working groups. So what we're going to do is, rather than talk to you about what we do, we're going to demonstrate what we do. So you're going to hear a presentation that we're making to you and to the scientific steering committee that's really an update on a project in which we kind of bring together our values of engaging and synthesizing. And we note that both engaging and synthesizing involve informing and listening. So everything in search is a collaborative effort, and my co-conspirators in this presentation are Matt Druckenmiller of Rutgers University and the National Snow and Ice Data Center. He's joining us online, as well as 4 very capable graduate students from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey. I'm going to kick off with why engage and synthesize. And I'll make 3 observations. The first is that the Arctic is changing very rapidly in ways that are having profound impacts within and beyond the region. The second is that the science community, people in this room and elsewhere, have advanced our understanding of and ability to forecast Arctic change considerably. But third, that political and economic decisions are being made in response to climate change and rapid change in the Arctic. And we believe that it's essential that those decisions be informed by good science and in a timely manner. So Megan Godfrey of the Middlebury Institute is now going to talk about how we engage.
Thank you, Brendan. So search recognizes the need to answer specific societally important questions about environmental change that arise frequently in policy contexts. And the key to effectively answering such questions is to find ways that make scientific information quickly and easily accessible to specific audiences. The tool we've created not only provides decision makers and management authorities with the information they need to make well-informed decisions, it also makes scientific conclusions accessible to a wide variety of users, such as journalists or students or scientists in diverse fields. Our tool is still a work in progress, and we're really eager to hear what you think, and we hope that your input and expertise can help us improve and refine it. I'll now give the floor to my fellow classmate, Lance Park.
Thank you, Megan. Now, our aim and our goal here is to help bridge the gap between scientific understanding and policy making. At the same time, we want to recognize that there are others out there already making significant contributions at the intersection of policy and science, and we hope to enhance those efforts by focusing on answering these specific policy-relevant questions. And this is where we would like to emphasize that we're looking for your help in providing more content and improving our efforts to this end. And so I'd like to welcome Serena Seeley, another student at the Middlebury Institute, to now discuss what it is we've created to go ahead and answer these very important questions.
Thanks, man. So we are creating what we call knowledge pyramids that answer specific societally important questions about environmental Arctic change. At the apex of each pyramid is a 1 to 2 page non-technical brief that summarizes the state of the science. Below that are accessible summaries that summarize main findings and critical questions. Below summaries are conceptual reviews that support comprehensive understanding of the are more resources for specialists, and they support a technical understanding of how different concepts are interrelated. Below that, and at the base of the pyramid, are the building blocks. It's the foundational information and technical studies about individual concepts that feed into the higher tiers. So essentially, each pyramid is a compilation of existing information about a specific question, organized by increasing level of scientific complexity and detail. So the way we do this is that we recruit experts, like yourselves, to create briefs and appear in short videos. We'll talk more about those videos in a moment. Once the briefs are created, we fill in the lower tiers of the pyramid using a bibliographic software. We found that Mendeley is affordable, easy to use, and is also a really great way to share documents. And we're easily able to tag each document with the relevant tier. And then as new syntheses, summaries, and building blocks become available, we can easily add it to the software, which keeps the pyramid up to date. So the way that we have done this is that each one of us has worked with an expert, in our case the expert who's written the brief, to fill out the lower levels. This has heuristic value to students because we learn a lot about the question at hand. These knowledge pyramids are a really important tool because they provide reliable, unbiased, and up-to-date answers to stakeholder questions without them having to sift through multiple sites and sources. They also allow for audience members to enter at any tier and find the answer to their question. Another valuable part of these knowledge pyramids is they promote collaboration among scientists in different disciplines by making these summaries and briefs accessible to scientists in different fields. Now, Johnny Daly is going to talk to you about our experiment in one APEX video.
All right. Thank you, Serena. Hello, everyone. Okay, Search has teamed up with the Film School at the University of Alaska Fairbanks to record interviews of 5 Arctic scientists. Matt Coomer of the Middlebury Institute is helping with the editing of these interviews to answer specific questions and thereby provide alternative formats for the APEX briefs. Here, as an in-progress example, is Dr. Hayo Aiken, addressing a question about economic losses associated with sea ice melt. We encourage any feedback that you might have.
This year, 2016, we've seen substantial warming of the ocean in Alaska in particular. And even in early March, people were saying there is no ice. I mean, and it wasn't just that there were only a few pieces of ice floating around. There was no ice whatsoever. For hunters, that's a very important part of the sea ice environment, the shore pass ice, because it gives them access to a lot of marine mammals and has so over thousands of years, that they would not be able to reach if it weren't for the shore pass ice. So the use of sea ice in these coastal areas as a platform ranges from the indigenous hunter all the way up to the multinational oil and gas companies. Much of the work that's being done at North Star, at the North Star production platform, is being done by moving heavy loads, moving people, moving equipment out across the shore path sites to that location. That saves the operator probably hundreds of millions of dollars because the comparison to build a road, even on land, of course, is that you would have to put major infrastructure in place to maintain the road under those difficult Arctic conditions. And here, the sea ice basically gets you that road for free. The window of opportunity for using that ice has been getting smaller. And in some areas, in particular in southwestern Alaska, where you're closer to the limit of sea ice, what used to be ice that could be used during the winter now isn't even there anymore.
Our plan is to test these videos on policy staffers and assess their utility before investing in additional videos. Whether the APEX pyramids comprise of written briefs and or videos, they will be accessible on the Search website. For an explanation of how the pyramids works, on the Search website, joining us from Boulder, Colorado, I give you Dr. Matthew Druckenmiller.
Thanks, Johnny. Can people in the room hear me okay?
We can.
Yes, we can.
Great. Yeah, so as Johnny said, I will now provide a brief introduction to a work in progress, the Search Sea Ice Action Team's efforts to develop a website that takes this knowledge pyramid approach to advance awareness and understanding of the impacts of Arctic sea ice loss. The Search Sea Ice Action Team, which is one of 3 action teams within Search, is co-led by Jennifer Francis and Henry Huntington, and we aim to advance research coordination, community engagement, and science communication, and see this knowledge pyramid approach as encapsulating this 3-part strategy. So this website, called Sea Ice Matters, is currently in demo version and will be expanded in the months ahead, but here I will demonstrate the primary functionality. So Sea Ice Matters aims to address a range of important societal topics related to Arctic sea ice loss, ranging from Arctic ecosystems to marine access to international relations. Eventually, we aim to produce a knowledge pyramid for each, but we are first exploring the merits of this approach for 3 initial topics: ecosystems, your weather, and coastal communities. So Brendan, if you can click on the banner there. So we are now just going to explore the website briefly in live mode. So the topics to be addressed by Sea Ice Matters are displayed prominently on the website's homepage, shown here. And this emphasizes that direct access to these knowledge pyramids is the primary purpose of the site. For example, if you click on ecosystems, you are directly brought to a page that allows you to access the resources within that pyramid. So on this page, the user can choose to enter any one of the 5 tiers in the pyramid, either briefs, summaries, conceptual syntheses, technical syntheses, or the building blocks. So if a user chooses briefs, for example, they are brought to a page that provides a high-level answer to the specific question that this pyramid aims to answer, which in this case is how is diminishing sea ice impacting marine ecosystems. So on this page, they will access a very high-level authoritative answer to this question in a format free from technical jargon and written for diverse audiences, including policymakers, journalists, and educators. And as Serena said earlier, we intend for these to also provide a window into the science for other disciplines. These briefs define the issue, explain why it matters, outline the state of the science, and summarize where the science is headed. These briefs will also be accessible in a downloadable PDF format, so the 1 to 2 page document that provides the user a timely synthesis of the science that can be readily shared. The other tiers in the pyramid provide access to resources in a different manner, since they're comprised of a collection of many resources, not just a single tailored brief. These tiers beneath the apex are comprised of expanding collections of synthetic and foundational sources of information, mostly peer-reviewed literature. For example, if you click on summaries, you'll be brought to a page that lists the resources within that tier. The user can quickly see the resources in this collection and browse through the bibliographic information for each by clicking on the top entry, for example, which here you see the bibliographic information. If there's an abstract entered, you would see the abstract in the URL so that one can readily access that resource. So Brenda, if you go back to the pyramid page, I'll just point out that the same functionality exists for the 3 tiers below summaries. And as one navigates deeper into the pyramid, not only does the technical detail in the resources increase, but so does the number of resources available in each tier. So for example, conceptual syntheses has notably more resources than within the summaries tier. So Brennan, if you can maybe end by showing the homepage, I would just like to conclude by pointing out that this web resource, again, is in demo version, but we hope that this will eventually be about more than just accessing the knowledge pyramids. We're hoping that this will serve as a link to a collection of diverse perspectives on the impacts of Arctic sea ice loss, access to a collection of sea ice-related coverage by the media, and connection to a new developing blog for the Sea Ice Action Network, where researchers, stakeholders, Arctic community members, and others can contribute blog-like articles on the state of why sea ice matters. So lastly, I would like to thank ARCIS, and in particular Ronnie Owens, for their great help in getting this off the ground. And I now turn it back to you, Brendan. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So in summarizing, I want to remind you that SEARCH is a community collaboration, and we invite you to join our working groups, and we solicit your help in authoring and completing knowledge pyramids. Our approach of tasking experts to write the briefs and then employing students to fill in the bibliographic data has been efficient. And quite frankly, a whole lot of fun. Working with Matt and the content experts and the students has been fun and has been really kind of unifying in my lab for sure. I'd recommend it. And I would conclude by reminding you that it's really important that you make your science accessible. We hope you will lend your knowledge and expertise, and now we're happy to take your questions, comments, and also your volunteering. Thank you. We have a question here, Lisa. You hold your hand up, Lisa has the microphone so that people online can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This is my first time attending this. Appreciate it. I guess the pressing question, perhaps in the mind of many of us, is that are you going to present this to DT?
To
DT, to
I'm not even going to answer that. So the information's available. There's lots of audiences. We'll just have to see how receptive an audience is in that building. Oh, and I'm sorry, if you would mind introducing yourself and where you're from.
So I'm Amy Lauren Lovecraft from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. So Brendan, what are the plans, and Matt, I know it's in beta mode, for the scope of the pyramid to include areas, for example, of Russia and other places where we don't yet have a lot of materials in English, right? But the subjects that you're covering are covering the same things that are happening in other places. So I use Russia specifically because that's often where we struggle to get data from. So in building those blocks down, how broad has the project been able to go?
Well, great question, Amy. So there's a couple pieces to that. So the first thing is that the example topics we showed are actually broader than we really envisioned most of these being. So we envision these being, each pyramid answering a rather specific question. So rather than something like how are marine ecosystems being affected by sea loss, it'd be more like, how are marine mammals used for subsistence affected, a bit now, or not specific to any particular region. The other thing, though, is that, as we all know, in some cases we can answer a question with a great deal of certainty, and in other cases we just feel there's lots more science before we can even begin to answer the question. So we think of these as sort of the state of the science. That's what has to be communicated. This is what we know right now. This is the state of the science. But of course that's very different than approaching this like you were writing a proposal. It's not okay to tell the policymaker of all the things you need to know and do before you can answer the question. That doesn't help the staffer at the end of the day do the briefing they need to do. So we really focus focus on giving a very clear, accessible, and concise answer as best we can to the question, point to where the science has to go. And I think it's really important that we all recognize that we're communicating with sophisticated audiences. They may not know the jargon of my field or your field, but they're quite sophisticated. So there's no dumbing down here. It's just a matter of putting it in accessible language.
Another question about scope is, so beyond, if one of the goals is communication, we be including videos, maybe, PowerPoint slides, links to other resources that can help in terms of databases, links to other resources that can help in communicating.
Yeah, good question, Stephanie. So, and could you mind telling us who you are? I know who you are, but tell me.
Stephanie from Barnard College in Columbia.
Thank you. And Lisa, we've got one here and one in the back corner. So to answer your question, Stephanie, yeah, I mean, we're experimenting with these short videos as apex products, as alternatives to the 1 to 2 page briefs. And there may be at other levels, other tiers, appropriate videos, certainly in summaries. As you get down into the base, the pyramid, the building blocks, we primarily see that as peer-reviewed literature, although there may be needs to put links to databases and things like that in there. So we sort of see all of that as both, for example, an entry point. If I had a new graduate student, I might ask them to read the brief, but they'd probably jump down pretty low and start reading, the primary literature. So it really depends where the audience is coming into the discussion. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
I'll come back to you.
Hi, Nisa Call from the National Science Foundation, Program Officer in Geosciences. So my question is, how did you identify the topics that you're starting with, and will you align those with policy that's moving through Congress to make it easier for staffers to find what they need? Will there be some sort of trolling of
so
bills to make that link?
Yeah, I think although this is a much faster process than the usual, let's write an article and then let somebody else write another article, and eventually somebody writes a review, and then eventually a journalist picks it up and maybe translates. We're trying to kind of speed up the translation. Whether we get to the point where we're going to respond to a bill during a particular session, I don't know. That might be a big stretch, but maybe we could. I will say that last summer when we were doing our Arctic Alerts 2016 event, somebody who shall remain nameless but is sitting close to me brought to my attention that there were going to be a series of speeches on the floor of the Senate about climate change. I think I can say that word. We actually got a number of people in the room, including Marika sitting back there, to produce 1 to 2 page briefs very, very quickly. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we can respond much more quickly, be more nimble. Good point. You get Kaya way in the back corner there.
Thank you. Kaya Briggs with NOAA. I'm just wondering, as a little bit of follow-on to the question that was just asked, actually, if you can talk a little bit about the solicitation of questions, the process for solicitation of questions, and the kind of filtration or prioritization of questions. Sounds like you have one kind of audience for policy generation in Congress, but different kinds of audiences for policy making in other arenas, or general public interest that feeds into policy making that we might not conceive of.
Yeah, so the short answer is we haven't really thought through well enough how to generate all those questions, but one obvious thought is everybody in this room has been asked specific questions that they may or may not have been prepared to distill down into 2 pages. So part of my invitation is not only invite you to consider authoring apex product of a pyramid, but also to tell us what are questions that you think would deserve this kind of a treatment. How we prioritize, we haven't figured that out. Peter, over here, has a question.
Just a quick question. Jim Magdans, University of Alaska. On the lower levels of your pyramid, are there issues of firewalls so that people, and how are you dealing with that so the public can read this stuff?
Matt, you want to take that?
Well, most of what we are hosting on this website will be, so if a resource is actively hosted, then it will either be something original that we've created or something that is open access. All other resources, which is probably the majority of what we're going to be linking the users to, is the peer-reviewed literature. And so in those cases, without the proper Creative Commons license, we are essentially just pointing the user to those resources. And so in many cases, you might be directed to Science Direct or some other hosting of the peer-reviewed literature that may be answering your question. So it's not necessarily that you'll find that resource immediately on the site, but your question will allow you to navigate to where that resource resides elsewhere.
So the short version is that if it's public access, you'll be able to access it through our Mendeley database. If it's not, we'll point you to the DOI.
Peter Schlosser, Columbia University. It's a very interesting project. Accidentally, some of you might know that there is a new journal starting up, Global Sustainability. The chief editors are Johan Rockström and Berthe Fried. And they have one category which is called intelligence briefing. And these are 2 pages that are actually sort of geared towards what you try to communicate, which means a science-based, short piece that has real call for action and policy advice. This is peer-reviewed, so you might want to see how you can utilize that and sort of make a bridge between what you have underway and what they are trying to do, because I think that might be a great combination and an outlet that also vets the questions and in that sense links it seamlessly down your pyramid.
So I didn't pay Peter to do that, but it is another incentive to author one of these briefs because you might get it into the peer-reviewed literature. Thank you, Peter. And I will say that, our intent is to circulate and do our own peer review, not the same as doing a journal's peer review, but so that we don't have summaries that would be contentious in the community. Bob Binshadler has a question.
Bob Binshadler. I'm one of the Search Science Steering Committee members and also one of the action team leads. I just want to emphasize that it's not just about the knowledge pyramids. That word engage involves a lot more than that. It's actual personal engagement with people in the stakeholder communities. And so it's not building a better website. It's not building a pretty website. It's not building just a very educational website. It's getting out and actually engaging with those stakeholders, letting them know you getting to know them, so that this exchange of information, this listening activity is a far more active interaction. And that's something all of us can engage in, whether you're part of Search or not, but it's something that Search wants to emphasize and try to develop, because quite honestly, well, in my personal view, that's not happening, and it needs to happen. And that's where the questions need to come from, is by listening to the community. So it's not us making up the questions or thinking that we know what your questions are. It's actually asking the stakeholders what their questions are. And the action teams are involved in this right now, finding out what the questions are coming from the stakeholders. So I wanted just to emphasize for the people here trying to learn about search, that engage word means a lot more than just the knowledge pyramids.
You said you have one in the middle of the back.
Yeah, thank you. I'm John Kilborn from Grand Valley State University in Michigan, and I actually study the traditional games of Arctic people. And I'm just curious, in Robert McFarlane's new book, Landmarks, he talks about the importance of including the arts, poetry, music, song, dance, games, in addition to the science. I'm just wondering, is there room in this protocol for that, for the arts?
So there isn't in this protocol because our focus is on informing policy making with good science. That said, I couldn't agree more that we also have tremendous need to inform policy and economic decisions from the arts. I'd be happy to talk with you or anybody else as to how we might partner to do it. What we know about is science. What we're trying to learn about is getting better at informing decision-making with science. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, a lot of us recognize that, you know, the kinds of hearts and minds that need to be won aren't going to be won by PowerPoint slides or graphics or data. They're going to be won by really good stories. And there are other, I'm looking to literature and the arts to help move the public narrative.
Hi, it's Steph McAfee, University of Nevada, Reno. I was wondering if you have plans to do any formal assessment of who is using these products and how they're using them.
Yeah, no, I think even before we get to that formal assessment, which would, you know, we'd have to have some time under belt, we plan to take our prototypes and take them to policy-making staff on the Hill and elsewhere. And we've actually already started this, but do more of this and really get the feedback of, yeah, this would really be helpful but if you did the following things, or no, actually we'd never use it, go away. But I think we have some evidence that this would fill an important niche, but I agree that we don't want to spend a lot of time on this if we're just kidding ourselves. Any questions from our online audience?
I've asked, but haven't heard back from anyone.
Okay. Oh, one be Lisa?
I'm Patrick Crow from Stockholm University. And I'm real curious here. I mean, this sort of presumes that there are informational solutions to these policy problems. Now, some environmental changes is moving so rapidly. For example, what I've been thinking about recently is losing sea ice in the Central Arctic Ocean. Right now, operationally, you need heavy icebreakers in order to work in there. Once that loosens up, that's high seas. Nobody's in control of that ocean. That opens up the fisheries. We have no idea of things like fish stocks or even the processes that are going on in the Central Arctic Ocean. And we've seen, like, some of these international high seas, like the collapse of the pollock fishery in the 80s, when that was overfished by a lot of folks. And so, I mean, these issues impact a lot of people that we don't normally think about, like China, like Japan, like Korea, like, folks from further south who are exploiting these regions for protein. So it's kind of, so how does this become useful? I mean, is there a way that we can just say that there's not enough science, that perhaps we ought to, promote policies that say we need more information?
So I guess my response would be that if we want to promote policies that are responsible, then we need to step up and inform the people who are writing legislation and trying to get it through their systems in a way that fits their bandwidth, right? And so we can't just simply say, oh, well, here's a bunch of review papers, go read the literature. We need to sort of boil down the answers to specific questions as succinctly but accurately as we can. That's all we're aiming to do. We're not going to solve all problems this way. we are going to make a step, I think, as a science community at being a little more responsive to policymaker needs. So it's not as, and to your point that, if you wanted to, if the question came to me, give us a brief on, the future of commercial fisheries in the Arctic Basin, you're right. It would be fairly easy brief to write because the state of the science is we can't tell you that. But we have to be careful because what we don't want to do is send the signal, well, everything takes more study and just give us more money and we're going to answer all your questions. Because the fact is, in this room, you guys can answer a lot of very specific questions quite well. And that gets lost sometimes, particularly because we're sort of in the habit of always pointing out what else we need to know, because that's what we do, that's our profession. But when we, in a policy context, it comes across as either non-responsive or they can't answer anything. They don't have an answer for any questions. And I would say we have answers to a lot of questions, not that one.
We have to promote the question. That's the issue. We're scientists. That's what we do. We're not engineers. We don't give the answer.
Well, yeah, and so here's the thing. I would push back and say, but the decision is going to get made. Policy is going to get made with or without your data or your lack of data or your professional expert opinion. And that's where I think we've got to bridge the gap a bit and kind of step up from the science side.
Peter Schultz again. I just wanted to comment on that point. We are scientists. We are not engineers. I cannot help but say that times have changed, and so should be our approach to our science. We have to recognize that it serves a purpose, and more we are asked to serve that purpose. So first of all, we have to, I think, orient ourselves a little bit differently than we did in the past. It's not just curiosity-driven activity, but also the alliances which we have with those who are in applied science, who are in engineering, who are in other fields going to political science, have to become much more intensive. Otherwise, we might become inconsequential. So I think as the world around us changes very quickly, we also have to position ourselves very quickly in a way that we stay relevant to the questions that are being asked.
Yeah, really good point, Peter. And Bob Binshadler has pointed out to us that our colleague Walid Abdulati has often said, well, the science isn't done until the paper is published. And Bob's modification of that is the science isn't done until the stakeholder is using it. And I think that is kind of getting at your point there. The other thing I would just say is that, we were, as Matt mentioned, this kind of idea came out of our CIS action team, but we see its application, of course, in many domains and certainly across all of our action teams within search. But when we were first talking about it in the CIS action team and kind of, defining who's going to use this Apex product, mostly what we had in mind were policy-making staff. And then Marika finally popped up and said, are you kidding, guys? I would read these because, try picking, here we are at AGU, 24,000 people. How many sessions are going on where you would go in and say, I'd really love to know what they're talking about, but it's a lingo I don't talk, and it's a high-context presentation. So what Marika's point was, great facilitation of synthesis is the ability to pick up in a couple of pages and get a window into what some other discipline is doing that might be relevant to you. I think it was, to me, that really shifted my realization of the potential power of this, not just to think of reaching policymakers, but your colleagues who have different jargon than you use. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. And I want to thanks to Matt and the Newberry students who've been tremendous fun working with on this. Thank you.